Welcome to Yes Also. I'm Susie Barrett, and my guest today is one of my all-time favorite improvisers, Eugene Cordero. You know him from Loki and the new Star Trek and The Good Place and a million other things, and he is a longtime star of UCB, both in New York and LA. Fun fact, Eugene and I grew up together in the Detroit suburbs. We went to the same elementary school, and after 5th grade, I left that school, and he and I lost touch, and decades went by, and all of a sudden, I ran into him in the green room at UCB LA, and we realized that we had lived completely parallel lives. I really love this episode, and I think it makes a great teaching tool. He does a great job of explaining what he means with scenic examples, and he's just the best. I also dug through my VHS archives and found footage of Eugene from our 4th grade talent show, and that is on our Instagram feed at YesAlsoPod. If this episode inspires any improv questions, send them on over to yesalsopod@gmail.com. But let's get right to Eugene. Eugene, thank you for being here. That is a loaded because this episode was recorded before.
Yeah.
And like the Jess McKenna episode, it did not record.
It did not make it to airing.
No. But the good news is now that you've practiced, you know how to do an interview.
This would have been episode, one of the prequel episodes.
Yes. Yeah, this was months and months ago. You've since been traveling.
I since have.
Are you since good?
Yes.
Okay.
A lot has changed as far as my improv point of view.
I noticed you came in with an extensive clipboard full of notes.
Yeah.
You have elbow patches on your sleeves now?
I do. That's because my elbows got scratched from me writing all my notes as I was walking. Then I tripped.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought it was a professorial thing. It's not. It's just an elbow injury.
I mean, I know why professors wear them because they usually are walking and reading or walking and writing.
Hazardous.
And when you fall forward, first instinct is to land right on your hard elbows.
Right. And a lot of people don't realize those tiny glasses that they wear on the end of their nose are not for reading. That's to prevent flying objects from going.
There's usually
they're walking so fast.
There's usually debris.
Let's start. We'll try to hit all the main points, but this is going to change.
Yeah.
Let's face it. We're humans.
Things change.
The beginning of the beginning is we went to elementary school together.
We did. We went to Holy Family in Rochester Hills.
Same school Madonna went to.
Same
No
education they gave Madonna. They gave to us. So we are very good at wearing letter, fishnetty things.
More specifics. Cone bras. We're good at dating Sean Penn. Being married to Sean Penn?
For a little while. We're good at, a little bit of voguing with just our hands. But then let the dancers do all the work.
Man, we have hot takes on Madonna. You were always really funny. I remember that. And you always had the same way about you that you do now, which is just like a playful spirit, joyful kid.
I was. Yes, I was. I am. I think it was just I had so much fun at school during the not school parts.
Yeah.
And I was really trying to take advantage of those.
Right.
To get me through the rest of the
Really
day.
make a meal out of recess.
Yeah. Really make a meal out of socializing during class.
Oh, yeah. Big time. I mean, you were a class clown, but a class beyond class clown because I feel like class clowns are disruptive and hated by teachers.
Yes.
And you were like trying to schmooze the adults in the room.
I was trying to get those teachers on my side.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to get in trouble at home for disrupting class. So if I was charming enough to the teachers, even if they were going to give a bad note or a bad thing, they were going to lead it with, we love him, but,
right. Yeah.
But he has to stop talking in class. Is he talking to the other kids? No. He's walking up to the desk and asking me how my weekend was.
He's walking up to the desk, grabbing the apple that somebody else brought me, shining it on his sleeve, and presenting it to me.
As though it's his apple that's given to
right.
you. You going to eat this now? Yeah, I think I don't know. I think that was just more fun for me because I was also bad at school. So I was like gauging the fun parts.
Right.
And also, even though it was elementary school and then going into high school, the male energy, especially at that time, was so like competitive and aggro.
Mm-hmm.
And that just like always hit me weird. It always just was like too much of a vibe that I just didn't really connect with.
Yeah. It was very who can run the fastest, who can jump
Scott
off
Kelly.
Scott Kelly, who can jump off of the tallest thing on the playground, Scott Kelly. He jumped off that metal thing in his penny loafers.
He did everything in those loafers. I mean, he was like pre-Jackass type guy.
Right.
Where it's like, hey, staple this to your chest. He was like, I'll do it.
I'll do it. Yeah.
And that was like a different energy that the other boys loved, but was like very destructive.
Right. And can I share a memory of you that I love that like typifies you? Is me and some girls were like playing house and you were walking by and we were like, oh, maybe Eugene will be our baby. Like, will you be our baby? You went, okay. Like sat on someone's lap and you were like, what do I do? But like that playful spirit and, you were a little bit smaller than the other guys.
Yeah. I mean, for a while.
Like,
I think I was like 4'8" until my sophomore year of high school.
That's pretty small.
4'10" maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty small.
Yeah.
What are you cooking with now? 6'2"?
Oh, I'm like an easily 6'2".
Yeah.
Easy.
Sitting.
Yeah. That's that's flat-footed sitting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, where I think some kids would be self-conscious or shy because of they're not competing with the boys in the same way, or you were like, no, that's not for me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be fun and funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think also because my sister was in the grade above us, and she was already like sports queen.
Right.
Like she was very competitive. So I think it just feeling that energy otherwise in the house and knowing it wasn't mine. It was like at school I didn't want that either.
Right.
And I was like drawing all the time.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
Do you still draw?
Mm-hmm.
You're an artist?
Yeah, Quincy and I, my son and I, we draw. We do like the one line at a time and then.
Oh, I love
things.
that shit. Yeah, that's great. So you talked before about like sports were kind of your sister's lane, and then you found theater as your potential lane in high school, right?
Yeah.
Got bit by the bug.
I got bit by the bug because when I was in 8th grade and she was a freshman, she auditioned to be in the play in high school and didn't get it, which I don't think she cared that much because it would have conflicted or made soccer harder or something anyway. But she didn't get it, and I remember her being upset that she didn't get it. And I'm like, you know what? In my head, I was like, well, that's something that I would easily be able to get. Or like I feel like is in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And this is after, our Camp Tamarack days. This is after like every talent show I'm like, I'll dance, I'll sing, I'll host if you want me to host.
Yeah. In fact, if you don't mind, I'm going to post on our Instagram a clip of you from our 4th grade drama presentation, which is you and Scott Kelly and a bunch of the other guys in tutus doing a ballet number. It is darling.
Yeah.
It holds up.
That was that was one of those things where it was like I remember being like, all the girls are dancing, guys. Can we dance?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, well, what do you want to do? Like some kind of hip hop thing? I'm like, no, man.
Ballet.
Let's do ballet. And it was the original idea. It was like, okay, we'll all just wear them, and then the guys got scared, so we still wore like our dress shirts underneath these leotards. But it was a blast.
Yeah. So you auditioned for the play then the next year?
Yeah. Luckily for me, my sister did not. She would have easily got it too. It was West Side Story. There were no people of color at our schools. So it was like, of course I'll be a shark. And I was like shark number 6 or whatever.
The theater director is like, we'll save so much on makeup.
Yeah.
Cast both the Corderos.
We've cast the Corderos and then we at least have a couple of sharks.
Right. God.
But she didn't do it. I did it. And I think just being in a production and I think the idea of it being focused on doing a show was really exciting to me.
Which part?
Just like that everybody's focused on doing a show.
The collaboration,
The
goal,
yes.
yeah.
And that it meant something to like the school, like that it was like cost money. Like, you know, you grew up or I don't know if people did this growing up, but you know, you play all of these games and you like play house and you play all this stuff. And you really, I remember committing 1,000,000% to everything. You know, it's like we're doing a concert in my room for my parents when they get home. Like it was like full production. You know, like I went for it. And my sister would do it too, but it would be like, no. We need lights, we need this, and it would be like I'd spend the day for this 5-second show.
Yeah.
And it was just always about like the show. So I think once I got into high school and I saw other people into it, I got really excited. And then the choreographer for that musical, I remember that year, I was like, oh, God, I want to do this for my life. I want to do this for my life. And the choreographer, all the other kids were like, yeah, do it, you know. And they told the choreographer looked at me and goes, well, I mean, you're not going to make it, but I guess you can try. And I remember that. I remember what room we were in when he said that to me. I remember like the look on his face, and I was just like, wow, okay. Well, I guess it's this guy's, you know.
Yeah. Also, okay, thanks, bro, who turned out to be a choreographer for high school musicals.
Yes,
Like,
exactly.
I see where your chip is coming from, but
But-
why don't you let other people have their try?
Right. But at the time, you know, he was the success story.
Yeah.
Because he was teaching us, because he had done the production of West Side Story like 6 times for
Right.
like 3 other high schools, did the regional theater. And, you know, regional theater was like a big deal.
Of course. Yeah.
So you're like, oh, shit, he was in the regional theater production of West Side Story,
Right.
so he knows.
He did summer stock.
Yeah,
They do 5 plays in a summer.
He did summer stock. He
Yeah.
did, dude. And it was like the thing where you're like, oh, well, if the big timer is telling me I'm not good enough.
Right.
But then I remember being like, but this is my first one. Like,
I'll get there.
how does he know?
Yeah. I also love that when you're like, there weren't that many people of color, you got cast as just a shark.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Like not Nardo or
No,
like,
nothing.
yeah.
Nothing. But I remember everybody that got cast above me. I remember even at that time of being like, I mean, if they knew me, I probably could have done that.
Right. Right. So I love this. So you have a fire in your belly for this.
Mm-hmm.
This guy kind of tries to naysay you, but the attitude is not one of like crumbling. It's, well, how would he know? I've barely started.
Yeah.
Let's see. Right.
Yeah.
What's the hesitation here? Did I get
no,
that
no,
wrong?
no, no, no.
Yeah.
That's completely right. Yeah, I just think back of like, I get in that headspace too of like, when is my confidence feel like cockiness, or when is where's the fine line,
Yeah.
and when is it okay? Like, to get yourself in the right mindset, I think it's okay to be cocky so you get back to confident. But then you should never leave confident, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you don't want to go cocky or permanently or
Yes.
or cocky plus, which like now you're in narcissism
Yes,
and
yes,
meanness
yes.
and
Yeah.
yeah. So faking a little bit more arrogance in order to land back just in confidence.
Yeah.
So when you did the show, what did your parents think? Were they like praising you as much as they praised your sister for sports stuff? Was there anything there?
Yeah, it was neat. I think it was neat for them. I think they were really excited that I was excited about something.
Yeah.
They rarely saw me focused on things. I was always just like, cool, yeah, let's do that.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, yeah, that's great. I like that. Are you happy, Mom? Great. Are you happy, Dad? Great. Jenny, cool? Yeah. Great. Then let's do that.
Yeah.
Well, what do you want? It doesn't matter. I'm happy. I'm good with this.
Yeah.
I like this dynamic. Which then lends itself to improv, I guess, eventually. But so I liked that, and I was happy in that. So whatever everybody was doing, I was having fun doing. And then when I started really going towards theater, they were like, "Oh, he really he likes this. He's reading these plays. He's doing this stuff." But also, plays were the only things that I could read. because my folks. So I think even at Holy Family, they were like, Eugene might be dyslexic, right?
Mm.
And my folks were like, no, we just don't see him read. He's just not reading enough. And I remember all of these English classes, I would end up getting C's or D's or whatever, and they'd be like, you got to sit in your room and read more, like your sister's doing. And I'm like, I can't do. I'm like, I'm trying, but it's just like I can't hold on to it. Like everything feels confusing. I don't know what chapter I'm at. Like, it's just not it's not holding on for me. And then once I got in high school and then was in drama classes and I started reading plays, it was broken down, by character and then, stage direction. And so it was like in these little quips and the scenes were shorter that I was able to really love reading plays.
That's amazing.
But I still have never read a book for pleasure in my life.
Yeah. Right. How could it be pleasurable if it's like you're trying to like make your way through a jungle of confusion?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never considered that before, that the breaks between characters, the spacing of it provides a way for a dyslexic brain to process and to catch up and to like have a moment, and it's like guardrails that can get you through. Yeah, that's fascinating.
Because like especially now, and it is a weird thing, like I was like, oh, I think I'm getting better in general, but like even then it's like how-to books or like that kind of stuff I'll read. Like because it's broken down into like, how to screw in a light bulb type stuff.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but like I would read to Alice, and she's almost 4, and that's fine. It's like a sentence a page, so I'm crushing. But like Quincy, he's almost 8, and like, Trish is reading like Harry Potter to him at night and Percy Jackson and things that he's really into.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, Mom's not home tonight. Will you read me a chapter? And I'd start, and he's like, it's okay, Dad.
Oh.
And I'm just like, I know.
And
I'm just like, because the way I would have done it if it was grade school or I felt like I was going to get judged on it is whatever chapter he'd want, I'd probably memorized it that afternoon.
Right.
So then I can just pretend to read it back at the pace that Trish would read it at.
Incredible. I mean, the hoops you have to jump through to kind of fake that. Yeah. But on the plus side, like if Quincy wants you to play a baby, then you're there.
I've sat on his lap many times.
Many times. So in the last time we had this conversation, you talked about a trip. Was it a senior in high school trip to New York to see shows?
Yeah,
and stuff?
it was. So the theater department went to New York during spring break, my junior year, to go see a bunch of Broadway shows. Like it's your spring break trip if you wanted to do it, and that's what I wanted to do. Everybody else was going to wherever beach, and I was like, I'll go with these theater people.
I was the same. I went with the Shakespeare class to England to see Shakespeare's birthplace.
Amazing. Yeah, exactly.
What a nerd.
So you just were like, yeah, I want to do this. You get to see like 6 Broadway shows, or in 5 nights, and then we also saw like a matinee of like a college production in this like black box theater, and then we also saw Chicago City Limits short form improv, and that was my junior year. And that junior year, we see all these shows. I see the black box show, and it was like a 1 act, and it was a bunch of college kids, and they were so in it. They were just so focused, just like the Broadway performers, but it was like they seemed like they were kids. So you were like, oh my gosh, I want to go to this school. And then we watched Chicago City Limits, and I was rolling out of my seat seeing Andy Daly was in the cast.
Wild to me that
and
Andy
John
Daly.
Telfer,
Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That you saw him at that age, and now you guys work together and all this stuff. Yeah, that's wild.
It was just like absolutely bonkers to see this thing that I didn't understand. You do like some improv games while you're in high school to just kind of warm up for like, because you're doing Little Shop of Horrors that year or whatever. But like you didn't like watch it in practice. I never watched it in practice. I don't know if I like had really seen like a Who's Line or anything even at that point. I'd watch like House of Bug and In Living Color, but not that. So it was amazing to kind of see this performance and them doing like a spoof of Jeopardy, but being these characters that we yelled out,
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was so funny and so inspiring. And then we did an improv class with Elliot Lipsy, R.I.P. this year, unfortunately, but he led us in this workshop with all the high school kids, and he had to be like, calm down, because I was going in so hot, because I was just, this is exciting, this is great. So it's the same way that I always have been. I was like, this is the most fun thing I could ever do in my whole life.
Yeah.
I need 2 other people. I was like, you just did the scene. Yeah, okay. It seems like nobody else wants to do it.
You've
that
barely
kind of
given
stuff.
them a chance.
Yeah. And I think it was just kind of that. And after that trip, I was like telling my theater teacher, I'm like, I want to go to that school. I want to go to that improv thing. I want to do it.
Yeah. And what was the school?
I went to Brother Wright. Marymount Manhattan College.
There we go. Yeah. Where you saw the Black Box
Where
show.
I saw the Black Box
Yep.
show, the one act Black Box show. And I was like, I want to go to that school. I want to take that improv theater classes, and I want to move to New York, and I want to do this. But I knew my parents were going to be like, absolutely not. It's cute that you want to do it, but like, go into engineering or go into nursing, go to Michigan State. Your sister's going there already, so you'll be safe.
Yeah.
And you'll only be an hour from home or whatever. Like it was just, it wasn't part of the world. And I was either going to go to Michigan State or become a priest, was my junior year mentality.
Was that your idea or theirs?
It was kind of a mix. I was into, well, like one of the priests at the school I had brought up that I might want to do it. And then we had a meeting, and he was like, you love talking and you love being in front of people. So you just want to perform every Sunday. And I'm like, because church was very performative.
Yeah, church is stand-up.
Stand-up,
that homily is a good solid 20, 25.
Yeah. And if you go longer, there's no light. You
Right?
just go.
You're in charge. The one drawback is priests famously have to not only read, but read the biggest, longest book with the smallest print and 0 spaces.
Sure. and maybe not even in a language we speak still. But so there was that aspect. But he was like, you don't want to do that. Like that. It doesn't seem like what you really want to do. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Okay, I guess I'll try to move to New York. And I think that senior year, then I went on the same trip with my teachers, and I applied to go to Marymount as one of my schools that I was allowed to apply for free with, and my parents not knowing about it. Like, there's 5 schools. Yeah.
All secret.
This is all secret. And then secretly went back on that trip, not secretly to go on the trip, but during that trip, set up my auditions for NYU and Marymount.
So your parents think you're just in New York seeing plays again.
Yeah.
And you are, in addition to seeing plays, jetting over to NYU and Marymount and doing monologue auditions.
For school. Yeah. And, and I didn't even get tickets for the 2 matinees during that week, because I was like, well, I can spend the day, just working on this thing or having, these auditions. So, so then I went to audition instead, watched the improv show again at Chicago City Limits, did the workshop the next day, and told Elliot, hey, I'm probably going to be going to school in New York in the fall. Can I work here or get an internship or something? And he goes, when you come back in the fall, just come back, tell me that we had this conversation and, whatever. And we can talk about it. I'm like, okay, great. I'll see you in, August. And I was excited. And then, I get back to Michigan after my auditions, and NYU had sent the letter that was just like, you didn't get into the academic part of this, my man. So, but we would have accepted you into Tisch, but you did not get into the academics. Good luck or whatever. And I was like, okay. ripped that one up and just threw it away so that my parents didn't see it. And then
Burned it in little fire in
Yeah,
your room.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my room fire that I had constantly going. But then Marymount called my house while I was like in rehearsal. And my dad's also Eugene Cordero. And my dad answered the phone. They were like, hey, can we speak to Eugene Cordero? And he was like, this is. And they're like, congratulations, you got into Marymount's theater department. And you got into the school. We would like to know if there would be if you could come back for the scholarship auditions. And my dad, I guess, was just like, oh, well, that's you're talking about my son. I'll talk to him and we'll let you know. And they're like, oh, okay, congratulations on your son getting it, and we'll hear.
Thanks.
From
I'm
you
going to address that he told this massive lie to me.
So then I came home that day, and he was like, did you audition for a school in New York when you were there? And I was like, did I? I'm like,
depends.
Why? What happened? He was like, well, because Marymount called. Is that one of the schools you auditioned for? And said that you auditioned and you got into the school, and they wanted to know if you wanted to go, you wanted to do the scholarship thing. And I was like, well, do we? And he was like, I mean, we should talk about this now before your mom comes home, because that's going to be a different conversation then,
Was she more against it?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. It would have been like, because I think this was obvious growing up too. I was such a mama's boy that it was just like the idea of being away from her and everything too was hard for them, but also probably for me. I've never been so jazzed about something. So it was going to be a full conversation, because the idea of me just going an hour and 15 minutes away, or a flight away and in New York City.
Yeah.
For somebody that they were like, he's, everybody thought I was fun growing up, but they didn't think I had a drive to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Or the drive that I had to be an actor was silly. So we knew my mom was going to think it was crazy. And my dad was trying to be supportive in it, but also was like, you're going to scare the shit out of us forever, And is it a job that you can get? Like, we watched a lot of TV growing up, and he was like, there's nobody that looks like us on there, So he and I were like, okay, yeah, let's see. And we talked to my mom, and she was very hard against it until my sister came home, and then we all kind of talked about it, and they were like, well, the final result was like, we'll go with you, see what the school is like, whatever. If you do well and they offer whatever, we'll see. And my mom was like, but if it costs anything more than Michigan State would cost, then there's no way you're going to the school. But we'll try.
Got it. So the whole family goes to New York.
My sister doesn't.
Oh, your sister doesn't.
Just me and my folks, and we go for me to audition for the scholarships. And we fly into New York. Our cab gets in a cab accident, of course. And we get to the Hotel Beacon. And the next morning is my audition, and I go to audition, and my audition's in that black box theater, and
the same one.
Same one, and I'm like, fuck yeah, this
Such
is
a
awesome.
movie.
And I go in, and it felt good, and they were like, great, and your parents are here? I'm like, yeah. So then I leave, my parents go in, I sit in like this hangout for the students, and everybody's working on their lines or laughing, or they're rehearsing hair, I think, or something like that. I'm like, ugh,
they're taking their
God.
clothes off just to practice.
They're just butt naked kissing each other just to practice. And they have their scripts out, so nobody gives them shit.
Right, holding a script while smoking a joint.
Yeah.
Oh, it must be hair.
Yeah, it must be hair. Everybody's all black clothes are laid out.
Their suspenders, their beret.
Yeah, all of it is out. One person who thinks it's Godspell, so he has got a Superman shirt on.
Yep.
But then, so then they go in, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, oh God, this is so cool. And then my parents leave, and they're shaking hands with whatever. And then they're like, do you really want to go here? I'm like, I do. And they're like, okay, we'll try it. I guess my mom went in there hot of just like, okay, what is he going to get?
Like how much money?
Yeah. What is
gotcha.
he going to get? So, because if it's anything more than our in-state school, like he's not going to go.
Yeah. She's like, I'm going to slide a piece of paper across the table to you that has a number of zeros on it.
Truly.
And you're going to
It was like
accept.
one of those.
Yeah.
And at this point, too, they were like, if we do this, and if this is really what we want to do, if it doesn't work out here, you can go to Michigan State for theater. Like, they have a theater department.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay. But in the meantime, I was just like, okay, fine. They were like, if you really want to go here, they made it happen. And then they were like, okay, let's try it. So then it was okay. Then we get back to the Beacon Hotel, and I'm insanely excited and can't believe that they said okay. And we're sitting at our hotel, and the Hotel Beacon's right next to the Beacon Theater, and there is a line outside of the Beacon Theater for that show. I don't even know who was playing. And my dad was looking out the window and looking at it, and he goes, and this is what you want. You want to be in New York City, and you want a line of people to be standing out there waiting to see you in a show. And I was like, I mean, that'd be awesome. He was like, all right. Well, I hope that happens. I hope it happens for you. I hope this is a good experience for you. I'm like, we'll see. And Marymount ended up being great. I jumped right Chicago City Limits as soon as I moved in August. I went to Elliott. I'm like, hey, I'm here.
And he was like, who are you? And you're like, we had a conversation. Yeah. He was like, I take your word for it.
Yeah. So then I interned there so I can take my level 1 class for free, and rip tickets. And me and Paul Scheer ripped tickets together. And Colton Dunn showed up, and Victor Vernado, and like there
Charlie
was just
Sanders
Charlie
too,
Sanders.
that era. Yeah.
So it was like all there.
Yep.
Tara Copeland. Like
Incredible.
we were just all there doing this intern thing.
Whilst taking classes there and learning short form?
Yeah. Like while Elliot was my like level 1 teacher, and then my level 2 was like Sean Conroy and Eddie Pepitone and those guys.
Wild. Hit me with your favorite short form games really quick.
Oh, God.
Or do you have any?
Do I have favorites?
Yeah.
I like New Choice.
Uh-huh.
I think New Choice is very fun, or Ding or whatever. I like the bell.
That's where like you're doing a scene. Our example at Boom was always, I have a dog, ding. I have a cat, ding. I have a sexually transmitted disease.
Right.
Like whenever someone new choices you
Yes.
or rings the bell, you have to change
Yes,
the word.
yes.
Yeah, it's so fun.
So fun.
It makes for real silly scenes because you have to double down on whatever the weird thing is.
Truly.
Everybody has to like make that the new reality.
Loved that.
Yeah.
At Chicago City Limits, also we'd play like Jeopardy.
I don't know that one. You get given a character by the audience?
You get given a profession.
Okay.
And then the audience also provides the categories.
Oh, fun.
And so then, you say the category, and then you have to answer it in the character.
And
whatever.
the person playing Trebek or playing the host makes up the question for the category or
Yes.
makes up the answer.
Makes up the answer.
Yeah. That's fun.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
So, and then, so all your answers are kind of character based.
Uh-huh.
So that was really fun. And then also Party Quirks type games
Where
they
like
have to guess.
your neck is a spaghetti noodle
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah.
That kind of fun stuff. I was always like, oh, this is neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then was fully into short form.
And then what led you to UCB? People from there?
Yeah. Like John O'Donnell, Sean Conroy, Scheer, they were all like, hey, these people are moving from Chicago, and they're doing this sketch show at Solo Arts. Was their Saigon Suicide Squad show. And then Sean Conroy was also doing his one-man show with them through there, and was there from like the ground up too. So I had started kind of seeing shows and being around then.
So once you got introduced to long form, what was that difference, or do you like them both equally, or what was your like landing in UCB like?
I think it just felt like kind of more of the same. It was like almost just doing the rehearse, like what you would do when you would take classes where they're like, okay, now we're just gonna give you a word and just play in a scene and see whatever without like the dings or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, this is just what it is, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's kind of neat. Like, what are they going to come up with? And I would see some early ASCATs and be kind of amazed at the idea of them just getting somebody telling a monologue and then them just going off of it, and there was no outside interference.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, this is feeling a lot more organic in a way. But because I laughed so hard in high school and even in my classes at CCL, for an audience at the time, I was like, but they love this short form. It's like quick. It's what they want. It's very like, and this is during the time where like, Dangerfields was down the street. Stand Up New York was a big thing. Like it was just a lot of like that kind of comedy.
Uh-huh.
So like the kind of alternative comedy, slower pace things were not necessarily in my mentality yet. And also I was like, 19 years old.
Yeah.
So fast and funny was exciting to me.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed watching that, and I knew I loved it also, but it didn't really register with me as well.
Do you feel like your background or your start in short form and like having the hook of games and the framework of games helped you later when you started learning like the game of the scene and how to play one unusual thing?
I do. With short form, there's such a different element of thinking on your feet because it's just kind of like, okay, now I have to do this and then do this thing real quick and then this, and it has to be funny.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to hit and the audience has to love it. And that helped me when it was just one thing of being like, oh, that's all we have to do? Great. So I think that helped a lot with it. I also think coming into UCB as an actor first, like even going into short form improv, but going in as an actor first, or spending so much time at Marymount just focusing on the work and doing Shakespeare and doing restoration plays and doing, Chekhov and all that stuff. You were just like locked into the work. So then CCL felt like a way to kind of let off steam in a way that wasn't as intense.
Took all the seriousness and the weight off of it.
Yeah.
And now it's like,
Right.
I can float around and
now it's fun. And there's no text that I have to be, that I have to take ownership of and all this stuff, which I also enjoyed, but was different.
Yeah.
So then going into UCB, I think that short form training helped with like the improv elements of it, but then the acting training let me relax into the long form of it, of like the pace of it, making everything feel real. Because I think short form makes for a presentational performer, somebody who understands that there's an audience in front of them and they paid money to be entertained by you. You're an entertainer in a way that like stand-up was.
Right.
I would never do stand-up, but like
Say why?
It's just not. It's just too. It is too much of a solo gig for me.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of amazing people who can own it and then write it well and perform it consistently. And that's just a different. It's just a different bird that I'm just like. I appreciate it a lot. I love watching it, but I just am like, okay, you do you.
Yeah. Yeah, got it. So, but
yeah.
I didn't mean to sidetrack you.
Oh, no. So then...
talking about short form performers have that sense of like, just like stand-ups do. There's an audience.
There's an audience there. I need to perform for them. I know the basics of facing them and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And that brings an element that you need, because once you get into long form, it becomes a more cerebral game. It becomes more of a writer's game. And especially at UCB, became more about the idea rather than the show. How smart everybody was and how finding that one unusual thing, and then just kind of, it's like people sitting around a round table and pitching their ideas.
Yeah, it's like a writer's room, pitch meeting. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Which, if you're on the outside, terrible to watch.
Yeah.
I love the end result. Write it down and I'll read it. As long as you keep it in a script form.
As long as you space it, yeah.
But I don't want to watch it.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing the UCB perform and ASCAP perform, and those are all seasoned mixes of short form and long form performers, and also people that are on TV and stuff. So they knew how to engage the audience.
Yeah.
Then I would start seeing some of the shows of the other people that came up while I was taking classes there. And because I was into the work, I could appreciate it. But as an audience member watching it, I'm like, I don't want to watch these people.
Two dudes with their arms at their side kind of mumbling words.
So I was just like, so then I stayed at CCL for a longer time because the little you can get paid, you started getting some money. And, I was in college and or just graduated college at this point and wanted to start collecting some kind of checks from something I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I would be watching, I was taking Amy Poehler's 101 during one of my college core classes. And my school advisor was like, hey, you have to start showing up for this class or you're going to fail that class and then you'll lose your thing. I'm like, all right, well, I only have like 6 more weeks of this improv class. They're like, no. I'm like, how about I do 2 more weeks of that and then do it? Because at Marymount too, in that weird way, because I was like, it was mostly actors and dancers. The actors were treated like athletes at like a, big school.
Right.
So that was also nice to feel like that, like, oh, okay, like they're taking care of me type
right.
thing.
You have a counselor that's like, buddy, how do we just get
yeah.
this D- up
Okay,
to a D?
yeah.
That's all I need, buddy.
Can you just you just need to show up and then we'll say that you showed up for
Right.
like this much longer.
Like
I'm
a parent with a kid, can you just take one more bite of broccoli, one big bite?
Truly. So then I had to leave Amy's 101 class like halfway through so that I can finish my thing. And I remember seeing that class show with some of the people. I'm like, cool, that's fun. But then I'd see like the advanced classes and I'd be like, that was worse than that 101 show that I used. Just because everybody got more into that kind of rigid.
They were more in their heads trying to think of the right moves or like the game or what. Yeah. It was missing the joy, the exuberance.
And the performance.
The performance, right.
So then I remember being like, oh, I'm going to stay over here for a while because it's more about the performance and I'm here to perform, not here to think.
Yeah. Ironically, the slogan of UCB, don't think. Yeah.
And so it took me a while to come back over, and then I did eventually. But even in performance there, I was like, well, I still want to do a show.
Yeah.
And I think there was kind of a slew of people that either came over from CCL or came over from other theaters or other styles and tried to kind of marry the vibes.
Yeah.
And I think with certain people, it was accepted, and other people not so much.
I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, because I've only joined UCB since they started in LA, so I was not there for those like early days. But does it seem like that the tide has generally raised in terms of performance level? Like the more that indie shows have come about and people are getting more comfortable on stage? Like,
yeah, I think UCB LA even changed how people performed.
In what way?
I think that there was a mix of more people that were being performative and doing a show, and less people. There was still a huge handful of people that were just brain machines, but there was also a lot of performers, and I think the reason is because we were in LA.
So people are here to act and get roles, and
they know that the audience is filled with possible people, so they were putting on a show,
right?
Which put a wrench into some gameplay, but put the reality of you're doing a show, back into it. And then there's the people that were able to. There was more people out here that were able to do that right. That became a good standard to look up to, or a kind of performer to watch. Yeah. Where in New York, it was still underneath the Gristides or where old strip club used to be. It was so underground that it wasn't about. And it's true. At that time, it wasn't about performing a show. It was about being as creative as possible. Yes. It was about really pushing the limits on what you thought was funny, where you could go with things. So it was a brain machine, and I understood that, and I loved that for people. But I think why I was accepted in that way, too, was like, well, then for me, if we're doing what is, what I feel like I will succeed in, is that if I still perform it well. Yeah. And, luckily, the Herald team that I was on in New York, which was called Creep, was a lot of the actors. So a lot of our Heralds were very emotion-based, theater-based, like all of these things where it's like, what was the game of the scene? I don't know, but fuck, that commitment was great. Everybody like did a scene. Yeah. And I think the acceptance of that and like the acceptance of that kind of style was like great for us to feel and then feel like it was important.
Yeah.
Because then you move out here or you move anywhere or you perform and people think you're a great improviser. And you're like, no, I just committed for real.
Well, I do think you are both. You are both. You are a great improviser. Yeah, and there is a difference between people who just commit but don't really have a sense of like doing a good scene or listening or
Yeah.
So yeah, don't sell yourself short on that. But
no. I mean, I love it.
Yeah.
I still love it.
You're fantastic. I mean, and I think you are rarely you are a rarely talented person. I don't mean you're rarely
only every once in a while I can really hit it.
Rarely. But you're a rare talent. You're so natural and adept, and it truly is like watching a fish in water. And you have such a good, easy way about being agreeable in scenes to weird realities, taking those weird left turns, accepting stuff, knowing what to call out and what not to. It really is masterful. It's like watching a master do something. It's like, whoa, I wouldn't have made that move, but boy, did that help make the show better.
Oh, that's cool.
How did you learn that? Or how can I do that?
I think you do it. I think this was a part of that huge conversation that we can have in general of like, as soon as the kind of improv scene accepts different voices from different backgrounds and different realities, the closer to these exciting places people can go. Like, I feel like I became a better improviser because you get more comfortable in your own skin and you don't care.
Mm-hmm.
But also you gain or you have the trust from the other people you're playing with. And then you get to the point where you like, that trust is really just needs to be your trust of your own choices.
Yeah.
Even then. So then there's like that kind of trip that you go through. And then, but it takes not thinking that your idea is the best, because it's not. There's not a best in anything in improv. There's not a best move. There's the move that literally happened. And that's all you can do. So like that's why I still think it's weird of like, unless you're coaching a group and you're watching them continuously make the same pattern choices of not listening or negating one person or this kind of thing where you can see that, there should be no notes on the show, because that show's never going to happen again.
Right.
Those choices will never happen again. And if they are, then they're thinking about choices for shows that they can't, they can't even get their mind to. If you're trying to like hope that a moment like that happens again, then you're really limiting your improv.
Yeah. I can't remember if I brought this up in our other conversation or if I've talked about this on here, but my first week at Boom Chicago, Colton was in the cast, and he had already been there for a year and also had been improvising for years before that.
Sure.
So he was like incredible. I was just starting in improv, and like one of the very first shows I was in, we were getting notes from the director, and the director's like, "Yeah, Colton, when you came on as the mayor of Cloudtown, it just felt like it maybe derailed things a little bit." And Colton's response, as like confident, jolly Colton, he was like, "Okay, Pep, got it. The next time we do a scene that takes place in Cloudtown when the Care Bears are facing off against the Avengers, I will not come in as the mayor." It was
exactly.
It blew my mind. I was like, "Whoa, yeah, he's so right. Like, there is no next time that happens."
There is no next time that happens.
And then if you're dodging like the fear of that note and trying to put every choice you make through this matrix of all the recent notes you've gotten and scanning, like, with the Terminator computer, like, okay, am I derailing? Am I this? Am I support? You'll never. That is the opposite of don't think.
Absolutely.
You'll be frozen. Yeah.
And also because there's like this hierarchy of being on a team or being on this or that, or your team being together this long and become a weekend this, or like this could be your last Herald if you don't do a good show. It's like that's the opposite of playing.
Yeah.
And it's the opposite of what's fun. And like when teams don't do well, it's because they don't trust each other, or they honestly don't think some people are funny, which is also okay. It's all subjective.
Yeah.
Like I know that there's people out there in the world of improv, in the world of the industry, that are considered very funny, and I don't get it.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I don't think they should have less of a career because I don't find them funny. It doesn't matter what I think.
It's taste, yeah. I don't like peas. Other people love peas.
Love peas.
Yeah. Peas aren't bad or wrong. I'm just going to scoot them aside from my Penang curry.
Yeah. And honestly, you'll save money if you just take them off
Yeah.
my plate.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to let you know, don't put them on there.
Right.
And if you do, we're going to be wasteful. That's all.
That's all. That's all I'm saying.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Now, you can take it however you want. Nobody likes peas. You know, like,
Yeah.
And that's the big thing that, you know what? Susie said she doesn't like peas. I don't think any of us can do a peas scene. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, no.
No, that's just her
It
taste.
was just her taste.
Yeah.
And I think after a while, like just when I was coaching or whatever, I'm just like, all right, before I start, this is just how I felt about that. It wasn't that funny to me. It wasn't this. And it was because I don't know if you guys thought that was funny.
Mm-hmm.
And then you guys went with it anyway. It's like, why? Like, what are you gaining? And I think that's a lot of it for me is I'm like, well, this should be fun, right? And I think I'm always like following the fun still. And when there are people that I'm improvising with, which I love, you know, like there are guys who are really great at setting up what they want to do. And I get it. And I think that's really fun. Ish. But at the same time, I'm like, great. So then I love this premise. So then what happens if this was a real premise? Couldn't this happen where the person agrees with you right away and then now we have to see what happens? I know you wanted me to go like, no, you know.
Yeah, I know you were lobbing for me to be a voice of reason, but what if we just move through it?
What if my voice of reason just justifies this weird thing, and then now we're both kind of in it? And I think those moments kind of make people go like, but we had it. I'm like, yeah, but then we're just doing one thing for 2 minutes. And I'm like, what is that one thing? You want me to just keep going, oh, hang on, you can't wear a hat in here. You know?
Yeah. It feels like this is analogous to like the kids in, do you know Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe? It's a chapter book, so I'm so sorry.
I know there's like those three things. Those three things are in the book.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's a list basically of nouns. It's a very short book. It's half a page.
I probably know it then.
No, there's like an armoire and the kids go a wardrobe, and the kids go through it, and it leads to a magical land. What you're describing is akin to your scene partner going like, if we go through this wardrobe, we'll go to a magical land, wanting your character to go, Sam, come on, close the wardrobe. Obviously, this is a bedroom. You can't just keep walking through furniture in IKEA. But you're saying the more fun choice is like, go through it. Get into Narnia. Yeah. Now let's see like what this world is.
And maybe it's just a bigger IKEA, which is fine.
Yeah.
You know, like maybe the fantasy land is just an IKEA where everything is put together.
Yeah.
You know, when it gets to your house. And that's it. That's fine.
That's so funny. So do you ever play like a sort of voice of reason guardrail in a scene where you're like, hey, buddy, put that down. Let's get back to work. Are you that character ever? Yeah.
Yes, I'll be that. But if I am that character, I try to still justify the crazy thing so that they have to come up with more.
Give me an example
like
of that.
If I am like, hey, you can't come in here with that, you know, you'll set the straw house on fire if you walk in with that torch. And so if you're like, but I need to see in there or whatever.
Yeah, this is my flashlight.
I'll be like, okay, well, yeah, I'm sorry, you're gonna burn down the place. Actually, just go on all fours, head in there. But be very quick. And if you're not quick, I'm going to have to kick you out. So then if you're not on all fours when you walk in, I'll be like, no, come on, back out. You're either on all fours or you're not. Like, there's rules. Like, I like what you're doing, but, like, you can't set this place on fire. And then like, but I really need to get in there. What do you need to get in there for? I'll grab it for you. So you stay out here. I'll grab it for you. I can see in the dark. It's fine.
I need more fuel for my torch. It's in the back room.
All right.
Yeah.
Are you, you're waging war on the other town. I get that.
Yeah. It's starting now.
I know.
I'm already 2 minutes late to the war.
But you understand that if you set ours on fire, they think you're on there too.
Okay. All right. I'll tell you this. Why don't I hand you my torch?
I don't need it. I don't want to set. I'm at the doorway. I don't want to set this house on fire.
Okay. I'll keep the torch, and you can follow me and make sure that I stay on all fours.
Where's the gas?
Right in that back
I'll grab
corner.
it. I'll grab it.
But it's dark back there.
Okay.
All right.
If I can't find it, then we'll both go on all fours and try to find it.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Great.
Okay, yeah,
it's really dark, right?
Yeah. All fours then.
Okay.
You know what,
Do you want me to ride you?
You know what? Then I'll snake and you ride my back.
Okay, perfect. Okay. And I'll be on all fours on your snake back.
Please, yeah, if possible. So I guess I don't ever do it because now I'm having more fun going like, oh, then now I'm happy that you're waging. Like, I'll try to justify it so that you don't come off as so crazy that it's not fun for you to keep doing your thing.
Right.
But then I don't want to stop you from creating.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I loved doing that scene. As soon as you said, I get it, you're waging war, I was like, oh, what a gift. Because, yeah, it makes it not just that I'm an asshole who's not listening to you.
Right.
That's high stakes, and that's a big need for me, and I'm like a hero in this story.
Yes.
You're helping me. You want me to get this thing, but you have this job to do.
Right.
It's a perfect example of like a reluctant yes. Like you don't want to let this into the thing because it's dangerous, but we're going to figure out a way to, oh God, this really makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah. But like, because even if it is a whoa buddy, this is a bad idea. I mean, it weirdly gets in the same mentality of parenting when it's that, where you're like, you don't want to completely say no because you want to know the justification. Like, I always want to know why Alice and Quincy want to do the thing. I understand that you're upset about this.
Yeah.
And you can't have another ice cream. But can you tell me why you need another one right now?
Man, I've never heard that metaphor of like linking parenting to being like a helpful straight man. That's such a good analogy.
Because you do want them to still feel like they're winning.
Right.
And that's how you want your improv scene to not feel like they're winning, but like let them win.
Yeah.
Like you're going through the emotional trauma. Like whoever's coming up with the scene is going through the emotional trauma of the scene.
Right.
Same way Quincy's going through it. So it's like, well, why are you there and how'd you get there? And if it's an improv scene, maybe I want him to get more upset. Or maybe I don't, and then I want to play together.
Yeah.
If the fun thing because sometimes, just like my son, and sometimes just like you watch an improviser and you're like, oh, what they're having fun doing is getting upset.
Mm-hmm.
So they do want me to get them more upset. And that'll be fun. And then, if that's the case, I'll try to get them to be happy so then I can get them more upset.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, you lead them. Yeah, because you can't have a black square doesn't show up on a black background. You need the white background so that this pops again.
Yeah.
When you're in your scenes, because you just described like following what seems like will be the most fun for the other player. Is that what you're always doing, or are you also following what's most fun for you? What fun are you chasing?
Well, selfishly, the most fun thing for me is already happening. Like we're doing a scene.
Yeah.
It's already happening.
So you're
the most fun
just
for me
improvising. You've already got
because
your
I know
ice
I'm
cream.
improvising.
Yeah.
I know sometimes that other person is not.
What do you mean?
Because they have their premise. They have what they want to do. They have,
Mm-hmm.
They've told me what we're cutting to.
Yeah.
I know what you want to do. And you want me to improvise off that, so I'm going to improvise off of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm already having the most fun. Also, I'm excited about being in a space that I've never been in.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm leading you to this place where that is, I've never been there. So, like, I'm going to have fun. I'm also, I don't know if we had this conversation or whatever, but I also play I'm aggressively playful.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't tell me that you're waging war, I'm excited to tell you that that's what you're doing. Like, you leave the gaps open.
Yeah.
Like, I might, if I'm generous, that scene, to go like, why are you doing this? So that you'd have the opportunity to justify it.
Right.
But if I'm just being playful, I'm just going to answer it instead.
Right.
Because I'm like, here's an idea of why, so that I can keep moving forward.
Which in my mind is generous play. 'Cause
Yes.
you are like giving the scene such a gift and
Right.
a lift. Yeah.
But if that improviser has all of these, they're on the back line just fucking writing a book, I might want, because I can feel that energy. Like the people
Yes.
that you step off the back line and you look into their eyes and you can see that they have a book.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, get
Just
the book out.
such an agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, get your book out.
Mr. Sanders, thank you for the opportunity to be the team leader at this year's retreat.
Absolutely.
I do have some plans, and they are slightly different than the plans that you had. I
Yeah.
know you wanted to do something like Trust Falls.
Yeah, just standard plans.
Okay, yeah, but I thought, what if we did like sort of a riff on that, and what if we sort of what if we did the opposite in order to teach the lessons?
Sure.
So what if we did like untrustworthy falls?
Oh, right. 1 second. I just stepped out of my car. I haven't even unpacked my bags yet.
I
The
know this. Do
retreat's
you want
here.
a chance to get your shirt on and everything?
Yeah. I drive naked just because it's such a long drive, and I try not to use the AC because we're doing, we're trying to cut off from reality, so I try to do it early just so I can really relate. And then I have to get, so that's why we do the typical untrust falls. So you're basically saying like you push people over when you don't trust them.
We push them when they're least expecting it, and no one's there to catch them.
Mm-hmm.
And we show them like, doesn't that feel bad? So that we can then say we're here to
reverse psychology.
Yes,
so,
yeah.
Okay. I mean, the idea of it is different.
Do you want to go inside and pee rather than do it here?
I mean, I don't have my clothes on yet anyway, so I'm fine just peeing. If you don't mind. I'm sorry I didn't say anything.
I don't mind, sir. I'm sorry I came in hot.
It's
I just
okay.
wanted to grab you before the retreat started.
So, no, this is probably the only time that I won't be bombarded by, I'm like a celebrity out here. Because I run this show. Anyways, yes. Is that an idea? Absolutely. Is it one that we can use? I mean, people are going to get hurt, and they don't know why.
Yeah.
Are you going to explain to them why they're getting hurt at the beginning of the retreat?
Yes, at the beginning, it's going to be their fault. But then at the end, we'll come in and sort of, it's the reverse. Okay. We go like...
At the end of the whole retreat. So they're sad the whole
Sunday.
retreat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I just love improvising with you. Is the answer. I was trying to be the agenda-driven person, but
I love it.
Yeah. Immediately, it became.
But then
I dropped the agenda of being the agenda person.
But then, does that take away from your sense of play or the scene you wanted to do?
No, it adds to it.
So then, why in cases? Because like a scene like that, right? If I was watching it, I'd be like, cool. But then somebody within the team would be like, but it wasn't like, it seemed like Susie had more of an idea and it was supposed to go like this.
Right.
Why such the holdup for it having to stay in that?
Right. Yeah.
Is it just because people need some like guardrails? Like, I don't know.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing that's frustrating.
It's frustrating. That is the shadow side of UCB training.
Yeah.
Where it becomes so prescriptive that it becomes a script.
Right.
And it's a script mostly written by one person.
Yes.
Or, the prescription is written by Dr. Initiator.
Right. And then everybody who's watching it also goes, this is the prescription.
Right.
So then if you don't follow it, the person who's not following it, even if they missed it, is considered the bad one,
right,
or whatever, to get put on a team or whatever, like those people, you know what I mean, that are watching it. It's like, well, it's subjective to us. Maybe we missed it, and that other person was doing a good job.
Right. I want to make sure before we end, I want to
Yes.
make sure we hit 2 tentpole topics.
Let's do it.
One was you briefly hit on it earlier, but you talked before about like coming up in the scene as someone who was like not the majority,
Oh, sure.
white dude in khakis. And I thought that was really, your take on that was important for people to hear, that like you found yourself in scenes a lot being made unusual for things that you thought were a normal base reality,
Yeah.
like eating hot dogs and rice for lunch.
Yes.
And that becomes the unusual thing.
Right.
And you're like, no, I'm Filipino. I eat hot dogs and rice. I was just saying that as a specific.
For myself.
Yeah.
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 I mean, which it kind of went into the mentality of the reason that people find the improv different that we do is because, we're thinking of it a different way. And it's like, no, we just had a different background that has to be accepted as a reality. And just because you didn't experience it, you can't negate that it is a life experience.
Yeah.
And not a move or a choice in a scene.
Yeah.
Now, there's been some scenes that have been amazing from a misstep or you said something the wrong way and then everybody jumps on it and it's funny and it's hot and it's the best group game anybody's ever seen. I get it. It's one scene, whatever. But somebody's experience is their experience. And like coming up in UCB or coming up even at CCL or anywhere, like the mentality is, make everybody look good, everybody on the same page, find that first unusual thing. And growing up in Michigan, going to Catholic schools, growing up, being a minority, like that was my whole life, was assimilating to a white dude.
Yeah.
Yes-anding a white dude.
Mm.
And that vibe was in your 101 class, in your 201 class, anywhere. Because they are the people that can afford the classes. So then the person of color takes a class, might be well off, might be working a bunch just so that they could afford one class, and probably can't take another class for another year because they saved up to do it. And they walk in, and then there's the majority of that class being this kind of person that they've had to yes-and.
Yeah.
And they're told by their teacher, everybody's equal, everybody's this, but then every choice they made, they're getting bullied to yes-and this straight white dude.
Right. When their base reality specifics are made to be the unusual thing.
Made to be an unusual thing just because it's, it's being a person of color walking in and the other person going, excuse me, can I buy this or this? Like where they changed it from that person being their boyfriend or girlfriend.
Mm.
An older woman walking into the scene and them calling them mom.
Yeah.
That thing.
Right.
Never, that woman could never be your girlfriend in an improv scene for a class.
Right. Where you're also playing talking buffalo and palm trees but the older woman walks in and it's mom.
Mom.
Yeah.
It's always mom or aunt or grandma or whatever.
Yeah.
The hot one is always your girlfriend or wife in it. Like that.
Right.
Thing.
Yeah, and if she tries to play a dude, boy, is she misgendered in a scene. They keep saying her and she when she's very clearly being a dude and said she was a dude. Yeah.
And that kind of thing. So then as a person of color, you're like, oh, I spent this money to not be supported, actually.
Right.
So then they don't come back.
Right.
And they don't move up the ranks because they don't feel the support that all of those dudes that have already signed up halfway through their 101 for their 201 can just, keep going.
Yeah.
And it becomes more of that and less of everybody else because there's not the common goal of going like, no, this is a safe, it should be a safe space for you to play.
Yeah. I think it's so important for listeners to hear that and put that at the front of their brain when they're in classes or coaching groups or whatever, or playing jams or whatever, broadening their perspective, remembering that it does matter how open you are to other people's like realities, viewpoints, seeing everyone as everything, and
and that it's subjective
yes,
ultimately.
yes,
So it's like if you're watching somebody having fun, you can assume that it's good for them at least, and then they're doing it.
yeah,
And I think, there was too much of, sitting in those rooms when teams are getting put together or this or that or, coaching a team where it's just like, okay, there's a math to it. There has to be like, hopefully one person of color, hopefully one woman.
right,
Like, it's like, but why is this happening?
yeah,
Like the people that you are seeing that are of color, you think are too much or wild or whatever. And it's just like, no, they're just coming from a different perspective.
right,
And if everybody else is a good improviser, it's actually going to be best for the team that not everybody is the same human being.
right, yeah,
And it sucks. And I mean, I think I moved in because I was driven personally to just do it. I also knew how the world works and the business works, and that I was not like everybody else, and I could play a dude in khakis to move up to the next level. I'll do that for now until you trust me to do it like that, and then I'll start peppering in what makes it not that. And then when it becomes cool for everybody to do their own thing, then I can just truly do it, and then it feels different. But it's not. It's what I've always been doing. You're just not open enough to accept the fact that there's different ways to do things. So, I played the game because I knew there was not much to it.
yeah.
But
Well, yeah, and thankfully you did, and it sucks that you had to do it that way. But thankfully things are slowly drifting into the newer model, the better way.
I think
but
so.
Yeah,
I was in New York for like the last 6 weeks, and the UCB opened on 14th Street, a soft opening where like not all
they whispered all their shows.
Everybody laid on pillows.
Oh,
it
that's
was
nice.
cute.
Yeah.
But like the sides of the house weren't open yet. It was just like they sold the tickets in the front. It was like a converted gym, so like theaters downstairs. And because everybody was like, "What is this? What is this?" It felt new and different again, and it was pretty exciting. And it's like, so then I did an Asian AF show with the performers from New York who I've never played with, and they were great and different than I'm used to in this what felt like a tiny theater for a tiny audience. That was just so fun.
Yeah.
And then the next show was like, John Lutz and Scott Adsit, like doing a 2-man show. And I'm like, and I could just sit there and watch it like old school, like that. It's not like packed to the rafters. There's not a bunch of whatever. It was just like barely, it was the people who bought their seats and then like a little group of performers in the back just going like, oh shit, they're doing it. And it was cool. And it was like that kind of thing again that I'm like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
And it does feel different in the sense of it feels new again, but also the fact that an all-Asian team just did a show, and then it's like this old school group that's going next, and it's the same night, and that's
right.
Good. Like, that's okay.
Yeah.
Is cool.
Yeah. The new normal.
It feels nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're over time, but I want to make sure that you tell this story about like recently you were in a Ben Schwartz tour show.
Oh yeah.
In New York.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell this story really quick.
So you have to listen back to the beginning of this podcast, I guess, to hear the story.
So rewind to the beginning and re-listen to that.
Yeah. So getting into Marymount, my parents saying the thing, my dad looking out the window of the hotel beacon, looking at the Beacon Theater and seeing the line and saying, "You want to do that?" And him saying, "I hope that happens for you." I go through life. COVID happens. Both my parents passed during COVID. And right after COVID, I started doing some of these touring shows with Ben Schwartz. And one of the shows is at the Beacon Theater. And this is after both of my parents had passed, freshly within like 6 months of my mom passing. And there's the sign for the show, and there's a line outside to see me do a show at the Beacon Theater. And I stood across the street at the grocery store, and I looked up at the window and the area that like we looked down from to see the line, and just by myself, and just kind of took the second to be like, it happened. And it was like a weird, I don't know, weird, but just like such a full circle, kind of like that theater, that moment, that time. The show was really fun. I can't even remember it.
It's such an incredible story. It's such a like closing of the loop.
Is.
Yeah.
And it's so, and I go back all the time. And even when I was in New York just now for this movie, anytime I'm in New York for work, I walk by that hotel just to kind of check in. Nobody's going to be in there, but but I hope that hotel never closes. But even if it does, it's just like the idea of they took a chance. For some reason, they thought it was okay. And the fact that it is okay is pretty cool. Because, I was a goof. And I would, if as a dad, having goofy kids is fun. But you're scared that they can't find the thing that they really want to connect with and achieve it.
Yeah. Well, now you get paid to be a goof.
I get paid to
and
be
to
a goof.
teach other people how to be goofs.
Yeah.
So.
And then I also get to do it for my kids.
Yes.
And get paid in a
and
totally
that
different
you
way.
get to be a helpful scene partner to your kids. And
Yeah.
That's the luckiest thing for them. I also just love the poetry of it being called the Beacon. Like, that's such a poetic metaphor. Little on the nose, a little heavy on the writing there.
Yeah. Yeah, we might have to change it on the day, but ultimately the play of it, I mean, yeah, I can't. That corner of New York for me, that Upper West Side area, that street, Broadway, just right there where the Beacon Theater is, the Hotel Beacon, like, it's so powerful in that way for me. Always has been. Even when my parents were still alive and I'd get over there, it'd be that I wasn't good at, I didn't get far enough.
Yeah.
For me to be up here yet. Like it was that. And then when they passed and doing a show there, it was like, I think I was like fucking bawling for like a half hour before the show started. I'm like, okay, let's, when you introduce me, just like, and it's just like, it was insane.
We are at time. We're
Great.
after time.
Time after time.
Time after time.
Not
we get
Madonna.
2 seconds for
Yeah.
free.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Not Madonna.
Not Madonna.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me back.
Yes.
When this doesn't work, we'll do a third one.
I can't wait. Cool, man. I'll see you around.
Yes, you will.
If you have a question about improv that you would like me to ask a future guest, email it to yesalsopod@gmail.com and I will get it on the show. If you're a fan of the show, follow us on Instagram at yesalsopod. And please help us out by liking, rating, reviewing, clicking, sending, talking, and blasting us to your improv communities. That will help us out a lot. If you're a theater who would like to host us for a live recording and improv show, let us know at yesalsopod@gmail.com. A huge shout out to Ryan Rosenberg, who produced this thing with his generous help and his unlimited knowledge about all things podcast. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. No, we won't, Susie. That's not how podcasts work. They won't even see us. They will listen to us. So it's actually the opposite of both things you said. Thanks for listening, and you will listen to us next week. Maybe. We don't know.